Cecile Reynolds again with Things in My Head podcast. Thank you guys for joining me. I'm having so much fun doing this with you guys, and I appreciate everybody who is listening and getting involved and asking questions and following us. Especially our boutique friends, Brooks Boutique. If you're not following us from there, we just started doing this because I would do these Facebook live stories when I did them for the boutique, and it just kind of got out of hand and how long it took. And so I was like, let's just create this podcast where we can really get into things. And so thank you guys so much. If you want to follow us on our socials, our social for the podcast on Instagram and YouTube is Things in My Head Podcast. And for the boutique, which is Brooks Boutique, we are a luxury and designer consignment boutique in a suburb of Houston, Texas. It's Brooks Boutique. You can follow us on TikTok and Instagram at Love Brooks Boutique, on our website, brooksboutique.com, where you could shop online. Or if you want to follow me personally on Instagram, it is Sweet and Petite Duo. So lots of ways to find us. We share a whole lot because you guys are just so much a part of our lives. So thank you so much. The last episode I did was kind of just the story from our Italy trip that we just got back from, a 2-week Italy trip, and kind of the stories around it. But I've been getting a lot of questions in general about planning the trip because it was our first European adventure. What did that planning look like? And I have some tips, I think, that maybe if it helps anyone. This is in particular to Italy, which we did 3 stops, which was Rome, Florence, and Venice over 2 weeks. But it could probably, a lot of it can pertain to any international trip probably, because I had a lot of help, a lot of research. I was clueless to how to do this and always kind of shied away from going to Europe because I was afraid of the language barrier, transportation, just so many things that I was so anxious about that I never really wanted to do it without a girlfriend. My girlfriend who really travels abroad a lot, but she couldn't go. So I said, you know what? I can do it. So I'm going to do a little snippet. Jen is here with me. You know Jen from the boutique, but she's also the producer and my right-hand person for the podcast. And so she's here and going to help me kind of walk through it in segments, so that way it's kind of easy, you can follow along. But if there's any questions I did not answer, or if you want specifics, since I know this is like a podcast, don't hesitate to send us a message on our Instagram Messenger or DM us, Things in My Head Podcast. That's our Instagram. It's also our email, isn't it?
Yeah.
At gmail.com.
It's at gmail.com.
Yeah. So, because I will answer anything. I'm such an open book. So, I won't make it too long. I thought I would go through the different categories of like where we decided to go and how long, airfare, lodging, transportation in between cities, excursions, and the general like movement, and kind of just go from there. So anyway, it's been a process.
Yeah.
Okay, so we went in June, beginning of June, and I started honestly probably getting serious about where we're going in the summer around January, February, because I was like, okay, this takes time to plan. That being said, I had this idea of points.
I was going to say, y'all manifested it on your vision boards.
That's right. Well, we did the boutique as a team. We did a vision board party like a lot of people do in January. And I didn't do one because I was helping the girls get it together. Side note, it's end of June almost. So I was going to send a message to all the boutique girls to be like, everybody look at your vision board. You're halfway through the year. Are you where you thought you would be? You still have half a year to go. But Brooke did one, and one of her things was Italy. Interesting, because she's not the one who has to pay for it. But it was manifested because we made Italy happen. So we've been planning it as far as January. So a lot of it was points. So I was like, oh my gosh, it's very expensive. But I started doing, there's a bunch of Facebook groups, and I was adamant. I've always had Southwest Airlines, like Companion Pass, because I pay every single thing on a credit card because I want points of some sort, even if it's $1. But Southwest doesn't go to Italy. So I was like, okay. So we had to do a couple trips with our friends last year. Oh, no, we did Australia. Australia, we had to use United last year. And so that was the United thing. And so we got some points from that. And I had gotten the United Mileage Plus credit card. So that way you could get the lounge and you can get extra points and all that stuff when we went to the Australia trip. And so that started like, oh, let me just put, and I haven't been using Southwest that much, honestly, because we haven't traveled that much domestically. So I was like, let me get a United card. Then we would put everything on the United card. I was fortunate enough to where I was able, out of 4 tickets I had to buy, I was able to use all my points, or it was really Andy's points, and the points we had from traveling to Australia. And then we had also, we had gone to Napa on United for Andy's birthday last October, so he had plenty of points. And as a couple, every person has their own like rewards account, right, with the airlines. But how I do it, because I manage it all, is I would put all the points under Andy's account. So Andy had the United card under his name, and he got all the points from the credit card points. So he was like in gold status when I had like. And I had like nothing. But because I needed it under one person, so I was able to, when it's time to do it, use points for Andy and Mark's tickets. And they're super long-legged, and so it's miserable. The longest leg is 9.5 hours, and it's hard for them if you're like in a very tight coach, which Brooke and I are kind of are petite, so it's not as bad. But so all I did is I got them coach extended, whatever that means, where you have a little bit more leg room, but it was a little bit more expensive, not anything fancy. And so, but I was able to use points for there too. And then, so I only had to buy Birkeneyes, which I cried because I was like, oh my gosh, I know inflation has gone up, because I remember like to Australia, the longest leg is like 15, 16 hours. It's really long, but it's a long flight. But I remember that flight was $5,000 per ticket, and that's to Australia. And that's, I think, actually the premium economy, like the next level up.
Dang.
I had to do just coach. It was coach premium. So it was a nice, better room, and that one for $5,000 further. But this time, just on coach, which was the compact economy coach for me and Brooke, it was the same $5,000.
Dang.
I know. So I don't know inflation. So I was and so I don't know. I know people probably are like, oh, you could have gotten, I don't know, a better deal or points done better. I don't know. I'm not trying to make my life about points. It's just how I do. I know people can totally get them for free if they go all in on these whole points rewards things. I don't have the time to do the full out thing. I can only do where, okay, I got one, I'll put everything on a credit card if I meet a sub, but I'm not like trying to open up 1,000 credit cards to meet subs,
I was
right?
gonna say, that sounds scary.
It's a lot, and I don't want to manage all that, which, okay. So I had enough for the boys', and I had to pay for Brooke and I. So we decided on, I always kind of figured 2 weeks gives you enough time, and we talked about this at the last episode, where after 2 weeks, I'm ready to come home, So, and I didn't want to do too much where you feel like you're moving a lot and not enjoying it, you're exhausted, because we were already exhausted. So we just did 3 cities. So last year when we went to Australia, it worked out where we were gone 2 weeks and we did 3 cities. We did Brisbane, we did Sydney, and we did Melbourne. So this time I was like 3 cities. It worked. So there's so many choices, but we decided on Rome, of course. And then we decided on Florence and Venice. So each one a little bit different. And so then the next thing, I was so nervous. Like, I originally was going to take flights in between the cities, because that's what I did in Australia. I just used their domestic airlines to go between cities. But then I started doing more research. So then what I did, FYI, the snippet is, find all the Facebook groups and you will learn everything you need to know. So I was like in 3 or 4 or 5, I don't know, different Facebook groups around Italy, around Florence, around Venice, like in particular. And it is so helpful for months. I'm talking like it encompassed my whole social media feed, because I learned so much about trains, about taxis, about toilet paper, about toilets, about all kinds of stuff that I would not have not known, because people would go and tell you about it, right?
Yeah.
So I just was on there all the time. So I finally decided we're just going to do train, which I don't know why, because in those Facebook groups, they will also scare you as pros and cons. Because they will say, oh, we don't do trains here. I know in other parts of the country, you do subway, stuff like that. In Texas and Houston, you're driving everywhere. You're not taking anything besides your car.
It would be scary to get on like public transit here.
It's even scary. I don't even want to do the monorail in downtown.
Yeah.
So that whole thing was such a scary for me. And because when you would read these posts on these Facebook travel pages, some people would be like, oh, that you gotta just go on the platform and you wait for you know which platform to come on, but they only tell you like 10 minutes before and you gotta rush, and they can change it at the last minute. So if you're running late, just get on and you'll figure out what little seat you're in, but just get on the train. I was like, oh my God, I was freaking out. And I decided, which I think this is actually very good, is we decided, because luggage was a whole other thing, they said, you know, you gotta bring all your luggage. So I said, we're only doing carry-on. We're only doing a carry-on rolling luggage, which even then people were like, don't do rolling because of the cobble streets, and a backpack. We did it, and they were right. Like, you don't need anything. I wore like 2 things the whole time, and I didn't care. But so I did the high-speed train, which was actually ended up being very easy.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so and because then you hear about strikes all the time. Like, I was worried that the airlines would strike because they'll do that there with no notice.
What?
So I know. So I was like, we'll just do high-speed train, and I learned how to do that, and it was super, super easy actually. So I would recommend it.
Good.
Yeah, and it wasn't like, I'm very motion sickness prone.
Me too.
But it wasn't.
I hate motion sickness.
Like, I even went to my doctor and got patches, you know, the motion sickness patch, just in case. But you can't even feel it. I mean, it was good, and the movement. So high-speed train between, I would highly recommend.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, and it was cheaper. It was a lot, and I even did, because I knew, like, you can pick your seat, and I did it all ahead where you had the table between you. So we had Brooke and Mark across from us, the table, and then Andy and I, versus just sitting in a seat, because I don't know, we get claustrophobic. And so,
me too.
Brooke gets really claustrophobic, so I had to make sure that we had space, and it was not bad. I think from Rome to Florence, it was a 90-minute high-speed train, and where we got to sit with a table in between us, and I think it was only $130 for all 4 of us.
Okay.
So, and then from Florence to Venice, it was a little bit more. Same 90 minutes, same with the table between us, and it was like $230. But when I priced out the airline, it was a lot more. And then, of course, airlines, you have to worry about like security and being there early and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, with I guess gas for the planes is probably what drives up the price.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's easy. So that was easy. And then I was worried about cabs, honestly. But what we ended up doing in the cities, what we ended up doing is just walking everywhere, even if it was far. Some of you probably should have cabs. But I was a little freaked out also about that, because the streets are crazy.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, in Colombia, it's illegal to do Uber. And I didn't know that when I went. I was a little bit older, like maybe like 18 when I went. And my dad, I was like, yeah, I called an Uber for us to pick us up and take us to, my grandma's house. And he was like, okay. And we got in the car. And when we got in the car, he was like, yeah, it's illegal here. I was like, what? So why did we get in the car?
Then why do they have it?
The app works there, but it's illegal because so many things go wrong, I guess.
That's odd.
Yeah. But yeah, it's when I went, and it was a long time ago, I was 18. He was like, yeah, it's pretty illegal here.
But he still did it anyway?
Yeah, he still got on the car. I mean, they're so relaxed over there.
Yeah.
So he just was like, yeah, it'll be fine, because we are Spanish-speaking, local-looking.
Oh, true.
So he was like, yeah, but if you were like foreign and couldn't speak the language, you might not want to do that.
Yeah.
So I would feel, if I was in Italy getting in a cab, I feel like I would be scared.
Well, I don't think it was that like they would do something to you, but I think it was just like...
It's like extorting for money sometimes. Like they overcharge you for something that could have been cheaper.
I've heard of that, but I was more worried like the traffic. Like even if you've already driven there, I would be on such high alert, because the roads, there's cars everywhere, and I was just like gonna have a heart attack. And the pedestrians, like they don't. So I was just like, let's walk. It doesn't matter. Like we walked from where we were by Trevi Fountain to the Vatican, which is it's a walk. It's like 45 minutes. But it was fine, because I was just like, I'd rather do it. There's one time we did try to get an Uber or a car. There's different apps. It's not even Uber. It's like Free Now or Bolt or something. No one came. and I don't even know how they would come, because then we had luggage and we would have to walk out further. Now we were by the touristy Trevi Fountain, so it was going to be a pain. But so we're like, let's just walk. And it was so hot. It was hot and uphill. And it was 45 minutes, but we got a lot of exercise. So anyway, so we did not end up doing, now no people do, but we did not do anything but walk. The only time and every time I needed a car, I did it prearranged. usually through our Airbnb. So if you go into Rome Airport and you're going into town for where you're staying, it's too far. So you need either a taxi, which you can just go outside and get, but we had a private car. Be ready, only because I was nervous. I didn't know how that worked. And two, we're coming off of like a huge, like a long haul flight, and I did not want to stress about it. I just wanted to know that someone was standing there with my name in their hand and I'm going to them. So it was worth the money to do that. So we only needed it then, and then coming back from where we were leaving. We left out of Venice Airport, so we had a private water taxi and car then take us to the airport there. So those are the only times we used transportation. Other than that, we walked everywhere. So that was pretty cool. So that's the flight. So it's pretty pricey, got half off. So what I do now, preparing to wherever we're going to go now, everything goes on the United credit card for the most part, so I can get as many points back, so that way when I'm ready to book another flight for us, if we're going somewhere next year, which we will, because I'm turning 50 next year, then hopefully I can pay for 1 or 2 flights off of the points. So we could do a whole thing on how I use points, because I also when I try to, although I've used it less, is the Southwest Companion Pass points. So you guys are going to St. Louis for a conference, and I was able to get you and Lauren tickets just off of points. So that was helpful.
Sweet.
Yeah,
that's great.
So points are a wonder. So if you have any questions around points or stuff like that, I can definitely try to.
I was gonna say that's like my biggest question as somebody who doesn't do much with a credit card. I'm bad because I like to just like pay it and have it done and feel secure. Versus right now I am using it more. Like I don't use my credit card very often.
Well, there's a lot of reason to, just for you to up your credit score.
And that's why.
I think it's your generation, because Lauren is the same way.
Yeah, me and Lauren were having that conversation where we're like, we just don't like feeling like we owe money. Like I didn't pull out student loans. Like I'm very a person that does not like to feel like indebted. It just stresses me out. But right now I am using it. I'm feeling more confident because I want to get a car, so I need better credit to negotiate interest. So
absolutely, and the whole thing, and I know everyone, we can go into, and this is a great topic we might go into later because it's things in my head. This is what I try to teach you guys, but I can't break what y'all have had for 30 years, is because you have to be responsible with it, and there's pros to it. Like people say that all the time when they see me traveling, and they're like, "Oh my gosh," I'm like, 100%, 90% of the time, I'm probably going on points, especially if you see me on Southwest. So I think you're missing out on a lot of opportunities that you just got to be able to use it responsibly, and if you can pay it off every month.
I think it's the management of it. That's what scares me. It's interest accruing, things that, those are the things that you wish you would have learned when you're in like high school. Like somebody give me like a basic class on like, how do all of these things work exactly?
I would love to give you that class. I've created a whole podcast around it and a work mentoring program. No, but it's true. I'm making Brooke do it now. She's 19.
That's good.
I'm making her do it now with a credit card that she has a $1,000 limit. That's all she was able to approve for as a young person. And she can only put up to no more than $300 on it.
That's what they say. They say 30% is what you need to spend. Never spend over 30%.
And she has it on auto pay every month, so it always pays it and she can't be late. And then the rest of the time she'll use her debit card, but it's purposely to build her credit. So, and she's getting no points right now because it was just the introductory credit card. But then the next one will probably be a Southwest card for her, so she can get points because she'll want to travel within the U.S. So anyway, we can talk about that. On the
that's
next
a whole other thing.
So because my point is I do use points as much as possible. So okay, so that's the airlines and then the travel in between. Okay, next question I had to deal with was where we're going to stay, because when I went to Australia last year, we had family for the most part in 2 cities, and the only place that I had to get a hotel was Sydney, and I used points for that. So this time though, I needed a place to stay in all of them, and I did look up hotels because I wanted to use points. But in Europe, it really is difficult to find one hotel room that will fit 4 people because they're smaller. And so there are some, but it's expensive, or you're like in the literal hotel room that doesn't have a lot of room, and you're cramped. And you're staying, like we stayed 4 nights in Rome, 5 nights in Florence, and 3 nights in Venice. And when you have, she will own this. Brooke takes a lot of space in the bathroom, and so I did not want to share. Honest to God, I did not want to share a bathroom with her, or just one room, because it would be a mess. I would be annoyed. It would not be good. So when I finally could not really find decent hotels and they were expensive, I said, let me just do Airbnbs, which then meant I couldn't use any points. So I will say I splurged on them. I tried to find Airbnbs that were close to where we wanted to be so we could walk, had at least 2 bathrooms, and had a washer dryer.
Yeah.
The whole thing was a washer dryer. So I found those. We posted them on our stories as we toured them. They were beautiful. But I've learned things. Like that first one I told you in Rome, it was in a perfect place, but they don't tell you, like, if it's in a complex, like a courtyard, and they're different apartments, because they're apartments, that it looked beautiful, but we were right off that cafe street, and they would go until 11 o'clock at night, and they were really loud. I mean, they're right below you, and we're on the 2nd floor. And so you can hear glass, and they'd clean up, and then they would put everything away and put the trash out, and that'd be like midnight. And by the time they're done, but then the next morning the trash trucks would come and to pick up all the trash in the streets for the next day at like 5 o'clock. So I was like, oh my God. So that was actually not a good thing. You have to ask specifically where in the complex is it, how far is it from the street, because that was a big deal.
Yeah,
I was dying at that place, and I was pissed off at that one because I wanted the washer dryer. And they didn't tell me ahead of time that it was broken. So so we went 4 days, and remember, we did carry on purposely to not have a lot. So I was like, oh my God, we just got to get to Florence, which 4 days worth, so that way we could do laundry there. So, and it was pretty rough. Like, we were at the end, and poor Mark didn't have enough clothes. I said, you just have to reuse those socks. Sorry. I think I I don't even know. It was disgusting. I mean, I was like, but I think I washed it in the sink and let it air dry.
Yeah.
So we did that, and then we did Florence, which was beautiful. That was our favorite one, and they had a working washer and dryer. But they're different there. Like, really?
I was gonna say, I'm surprised that you guys found dryers, because they don't have dryers in most countries.
Well, I know, that's why I was
It's actually, they wash it with washers, and then they, even in Colombia, it's all air dry.
And I even bought from all my travel Facebook groups one of those camping clotheslines, so that way I could do that. I did use it only once in Venice, because they didn't have a dryer. But in Florence, which is where we did most of the laundry, they did have it, but I didn't realize till the last day that when I read the actual manual for the Airbnb, that it actually said their dryer is mainly just to, it's not even a dryer like we think, but a dryer like to get the nose damp out and then hang it. Which I didn't think that, so I was fully drying it. But then, which was fine, except then it said this thing where there's some compartment you're supposed to, not the lint thing, but where you are supposed to take this compartment out every time you use it on the dryer and pour the water. And I used it every day for 5 days, and I didn't read it till the last day, so I was like, oh my God. So I took it out, and this whole compartment of the dryer was full of water, because I guess it doesn't drain anywhere. It drains into that compartment. It was so full. I was like, oh my God, thank God I saw it at the end before they was like, what are you doing to our dryer? And so apparently you're not supposed to dry it fully. And so I was using it like we use in the States. But anyway, I was happy they had a dryer. I was happy they had a dryer, and it was beautiful. And then Venice did not have a dryer, and we only were there 3 days, and so I just didn't even really wash there except socks or something. And then use my clothesline dryer, which this was a cool thing. Of course, I didn't realize you could just go to the grocery store while you're there. I was so pre-prepared that I had bought these things on Amazon, which is washer sheets. Like, they're not liquid detergent, they're like sheets, so it's solid. And then it melts or dissolves in water, which was pretty cool. So that was a cool tip I learned, to have.
Just so that you never know, your skin could be sensitive. At least you know what you're going to be, washing with. Yeah.
Exactly where the grocery store was if I had it in this town. So anyway, so that was the Airbnb, and someone asked me, is it nice? I'm not going to lie, we splurged on that. It was a lot. I cried, but at the same time, I'm the type of person, we did spend more time in the Airbnb than you go out, but you come back because you're so tired in the middle of the day. And then again, Mark was taking some college classes, so pre-college classes, so we needed time there. And honestly, we were already bickering somewhat, as you can tell in the last episode. So I needed my own space. People needed their own space. So we typically will want more room than us, and not stay on that portion. Okay, so that was that. So we got airfare, we got trains, we got Airbnbs. The next thing would be excursions. So I tried to hit the highlights of things because my theory is I might never come back to this city because there's so many other places in the world I want to see. So what are the things that I would regret if I didn't go to? So, and I try not to do too many things back to back to leave room to roam the cities. So, because there's so much to walk to. For Rome, my main thing was I wanted to see the Vatican, right? The Vatican City, and I wanted to see the Colosseum. And I think those were the only two big things, because the Colosseum entails the Colosseum, the Roman Forum, and the Palatine Hill. I gotta say, so that's one excursion. And then the Vatican City includes the Vatican, which I didn't realize that I'm Catholic, that when they say that, they mean the city. Vatican is Vatican City, and then they had the Vatican Museums and Sistine Chapel and St. Peter's Basilica. So that's one excursion. And then the rest of the time, we did a golf cart tour so we can see the city on a golf cart. And then I think we just walked around. Those are the days we just walked around. Yeah. So I didn't do, and there were like 1 or 2 days where we just didn't have an excursion. And then I did all that through TripAdvisor. And I would look and make sure, and I would purposely do one a day. Like, you don't want to book them.
Like double days.
Yeah. And I've learned also, you do the morning ones because for heat, at least in the summertime, and crowds. So we did that, and those were great. I really do think you have to have a guide. And if they have to skip the line, guys, skip the line. Use the excursion, skip the line, because I would watch people who did not, if you can afford it, of course, or skip somewhere else, honestly, because otherwise people were in those lines, I'm not kidding you, like 5 or 6 hours. Ooh. And that's your whole day.
That's awful.
And you're in heat, and you gotta pee, and I'm like, no, when you go that far, at this point, you're splurging. Splurge that, skip the line, so you can do other things with your time. So, because that happened in multiple places, I'm like, what line is that? It's crazy. So that was Rome, and I did it through TripAdvisor. And then here's a tip I always do, because usually on TripAdvisor, you can either, if they give you the choice to reserve it, and it will charge you like over time versus pay in full. I never pay in full. I do it over time, or like a third now, a third later, because you never know, if you're gonna cancel. Yeah, and even though they'll refund you, I'd rather you not have never charged me anyway and worry about the refund. Yeah, because that happens. Because sometimes they will have to cancel or whatever. So I always do that. I don't pay ahead. And then in Florence, the only things I had booked, because the golf cart tour there got canceled or they didn't show, so we ended up just doing Duomo, which is that dome. It's I'm trying to remember the different churches. That was the Duomo, climb to the dome, and that was one excursion. And then, oh my gosh, what was the other one? There was the Gucci excursion, that was free. Not free. That was on my self-guided tour.
That was another spiritual pilgrimage.
That was a pilgrimage. That was a true motherland pilgrimage to Gucci. We did the Duomo tour, and what else did we do there? Oh my gosh, I blinked and I forgot. There was the one other tour. I forgot. What's the church there? It's the Baptistry and Duomo. That's the church. That was one line, and then there was something else that I already forgot. Oh no, we did the Tuscany tour. We did the winery tour out into the country. Ooh. We booked that last minute because I didn't have much planned there, and then a lot of walking around. Yeah. And then because that's right, because the golf cart tour got canceled. And there was a good 2 or 3 days we had nothing planned except walk around, because that was our longest place. And then in Venice, it was only 3 days, and only thing I had was one day where we did the St. Mark's Basilica and Doge's Palace tour, which one of them got canceled because they didn't show up. And so we just bought tickets by chance that were no lines and looked at the palace ourselves, which saved a lot of money, except that I'm sure there's a lot of things. All we did was look around. We have no idea what we were looking
historical, like what are we looking at right now?
You can read, but they're like at the same time, it's not the same as a guide telling you the specifics. But at that point, I had spent so much money, I was like, I'll save the money, I don't care.
I guess we're reading today.
I guess we're reading, and ooh, it looks so pretty. I guess we're reading today, that's funny. Okay, So basically, and then we did the gondola. Okay, so let me talk to you about the gondola. Honestly, it was the end of the trip, and I probably would have skipped the gondola for those. And it's so touristy because you go.
What is that, like the boat?
Yeah, the boat
Oh,
thing.
okay.
And so it was during the day. It was 90 euros for up to 5 people. So we need one boat. If it's after 7, it was 110 euros. But you can see, like, you're literally just on the boat going down and coming back to back. So part of me was like, do I need to really do that?
I was gonna say, is it like going down? You know, in San Antonio, they have a
the
little
river walk. It's literally that. And so, but the only reason why I did it is because how do you go to Venice and maybe not ever come back and not take a gondola ride?
Yeah,
So
it is beautiful
like,
looking. I mean,
it was pretty cool, but it's 30 minutes, but it really is that you go down the side canal. And so that way you can take your pictures and videos, which we did, and then you go out like a snippet to the Grand Canal, and then they just turn around and come back in.
Yeah.
And it was cool to do, but if I ever went back, I don't feel the need to ever do it. And then because you see all the rom-com movies, I'm like, no one's even getting engaged on this thing.
You were like, where's the drama?
Nobody's singing.
I think we have different expectations about what's about to happen.
Exactly. And it was a bottleneck. So really, I was like, okay. And it was funny because Martha's such a good sport because I showed a couple pictures I posted right here. I was like, yep, I'm on a gondola. He's like, I'm still on that gondola. So, and I told Brooke, because she was with her parents, her brother, I said, well, if you ever come back with like a significant other, it'll be completely different.
I was gonna say, maybe it's more like a significant other thing, like just you and Andy would do it, like more like romantic than like full family.
I'll tell you what, you know how in Las Vegas there's the Venetian casino, and if you've ever been in it, it's closed in, but they made the Venetian, like the gondolas and the water streets and all that. And I've been on there. I mean, I've been in the Vegas Venetian. It looks
no way.
Just like it. And you know how their ceiling is like sky? I'm telling you, I was like, this looks like I'm in Las Vegas.
No way.
Even though it was outside and Vegas was inside.
My gosh.
They did a great job making the Venetian look like Venice. I
wow.
will give it to them.
So it's a spot on replica.
It was a spot on replica. I didn't even have to go to Venice. Okay, let me see if there's any other travel tips that I need to talk. I did not make any reservations to anything. I know people have talked about that. You can go into anywhere. I will say that we tried to do, it was a very touristy, these towns, but in the big piazzas, we tried not to really go eat there because I heard they were pricier and not as good versus doing some of the smaller streets, which is probably spot on. I'm not gonna lie, a gelato is a big thing there, but I like ice cream better.
Oh my God.
Brooke liked it, but I liked ice cream better. There's that. I'm trying to think, what are the other tips? Euros, we did put everything on credit card. Again, our United card, we made sure there's no foreign transaction fees. There will be times, the times we used euros as the tip, which that was a big deal. Like Andy's a pretty big tipper. But I had to really get him to understand tipping is different there. And though they will take it, and there are some big touristy spots that will ask, they would ask, and I would say they would ask because they knew for the tipping. Like for instance, we were in Rome, and like I said, our apartment was right above a main street of cafes. And of course, when you're down there, the waiter or the maitre d' is going to be like, oh, where are you from? And of course, she'll be like, Texas. And I realized, I think, that they were asking that, probably because they want to know where you are, but because then they will know if you're used to a big tipper situation or if you're like European.
Yeah, right? Where they don't tip.
Where they don't tip, but like a few euros, but not like 20%. And so, Andy got upset one time because, he is oblivious to it, and he was like, Texas. But then that one spot did take him to the back to pay the credit card versus at the table. And he knows the culture, unless you're trying to scam you, where he was like, it's 20% tip. And he's like, I know it's not an automatic 20 here. And so they were just trying to like take it from him because he was touristy. So because other places were not, some places would not even ask for, most places wouldn't ask for tip, or he'd leave like €5, even less some places that others did. He would probably leave a €5 for something that was like 50 or 60 euros because it's less. So anyway, So that was, the tipping part was hard, I think, for Andy to get used to because the tipping culture here. But in all the Facebook groups I was in on this, it was a big debate. Like, people not from the U.S. would really get mad at people at the U.S. saying how to tip because they don't want that culture there. Because that's our culture here. Because it's ruining it for them there. You know, because they're like, you're making that's why they expect it now, is because the Americans are doing it. But that's only an American thing because you don't pay enough
to live.
wage.
It's $2. That's
right.
Crazy.
So that was actually, I mean, it was really hard. That was really, because it was very opposite of what Andy would do. But I was trying to tell him, it's also offensive. It could be offensive. So.
Yeah, because they get paid like
normal.
Yeah, normal,
right,
a wage.
Right. Yeah. Okay, and I will also say this. I can't say it can't be done in terms of, like, when I say when you go to Europe, it's a lot of walking, it's a lot of steps, it's a lot of unevenness, right? So even old and young, like I saw people with strollers and I was like, oh my gosh, that was so hard. I saw older people that had mobility issues, that sometimes they would have to sit out something. We were on the Roman ruins tour, or the Palatine Hill, and this older lady was with her adult daughters, and she had to sit out because she was like, I can't do those things. Yeah, and it's physically, you're walking.
It's demanding.
It's demanding. Yeah. So I can't imagine, like, you know, if you really have a hard time, it's going to be hard. So I say that to say that it's not like it can't be done, and they, you know, will try to accommodate, but the country is not set up for that, right?
Yeah.
It's not, because it's what it was, centuries ago.
Yeah.
So I would say if you have the ability to go when you were able to, that's probably the best time, because you won't miss out on anything. Which is also why I joke, besides the money, because I told my kids, I said, this is why I never took you when you were young, because you wouldn't appreciate it, and I can't handle the strollers. And they're like, and you didn't have the money. Yes, that too. That too. But now as, like, older teenagers, they can do their own thing, and I don't have to worry about it. And if I want to go out at night and have a stroll with Andy, then I can leave them and not worry about it.
Yeah, it's kind of best to go when they can actually walk and do take care of themselves.
Because, like, I even think of, like, when my mom was older, there was no way she would be able to make that trip, you know?
Yeah.
And they always say that, like, you wait till you're older to do things, but then you physically can't, you know?
Yeah,
like,
what a bummer.
Yeah, so you have to try. You gotta just, you know, I'm not gonna lie, this trip was a lot for us, and so I joke to the kids now, I'm like, don't ask me for anything. We're not going out to eat. We're gonna eat at home because we spend a lot of money, but I would sacrifice that now to be able to do that trip while we physically can, because I told the kids, I said, you know, we're finally at a place where, you know, y'all are old enough, we can go. Dad and I have probably a good 10 years of traveling with you guys. After that, we physically are going to be like, no, thank you, I'll go on a cruise.
Oh my gosh.
So I was like, so you try to, and I wish we did it sooner, but we just didn't have the ability to leave that long with my parents. So anyway, okay, so those are the things I would say in terms of planning for a trip like that. So pretty easy, not as crazy as I thought. By the way, here's a different thing that I was not used to. Obviously, water. Like here in the States, you ask for water at a restaurant, it's free because it's just tap water or whatever.
Yeah.
There, it's obviously very specific if it's natural still water or mineral water, and you have to pay for it because it comes in like bottled.
Yeah.
It's not like from the faucet. So if you think you're trying to save money by saying water, you're paying for it anyway.
Yeah. They like even in Colombia, they like it like gassed water, like with, I don't know, what is that, sparkling water?
Oh, so that's carbonated.
Carbonated.
Yeah, carbonated
yes.
water.
They drink a lot of carbonated water.
Yeah, there too. Oh my gosh. And not to say this is a bad thing, but there are definitely a lot more smokers there.
Oh yeah, probably. That's, I think, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Here we're like, there's a big, I think, push to not smoke anymore.
And you can't really smoke inside, but everyone eats outside, and it's so closed and like it's so tight that I'm like, oh my god, the smoke was a lot for me. But you just try to move on. So those are the kind of the big differences over there. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, I hope that was helpful. I can answer any questions that I did not mention. If you have any that you want to ask, just, you know, DM us on our Instagram page, the Things in My Head podcast. But very doable, and it was a trip of a lifetime, and I'm so happy we did it. We barely touched a lot of what we wanted to see in Italy. You can make a whole other trip on other places, but I'm happy that we went. But I'm also happy to be back. So thank you guys for listening. I don't know what the next topic will be. Let us know if there's something specific you want us to talk about. but we always have a growing list.
Yeah.
Or if you want me to bring one of the specific girls on board to chat with me, we could do that too. So thank you again. Follow us on Instagram, Things in My Head Podcast. Also, the boutique is Love Brooks Boutique or brooksboutique.com. And my personal Instagram is Sweet and Petite Duo. Have a great day.